Supported my family with $400,000 over 8 years, while they called me cash cow behind my back. She's too stupid and naive to say no. When they demanded my house for my sister's wedding, I exposed them at dinner. Now they're broke. Well, let's go. My name is Olivia. I am 32 years old, and I work as a financial analyst at a major investment firm in New York City. I make about $150,000 a year now. But let me tell you how I got here and what my so-called family did to me. I have parents, my dad, Robert, and my mom, Linda, and a younger sister, Madison, who's 7 years younger than me. From the very beginning, it was clear who the favorite child was. When I was 8 years old and brought home straight A's on my report card, my parents just nodded and said, "That's what you're supposed to do, Olivia. It's your job to get good grades." But when Madison was in first grade and got a B on her spelling test, they threw a whole celebration dinner at her favorite restaurant. I remember sitting there watching them praise her for doing such an amazing job while my perfect report card sat forgotten in my backpack. The difference in how they treated us only got worse as we got older. For my 16th birthday, my parents gave me a used bike they bought from our neighbor for $50. The chain was rusty, the paint was chipped, and one of the brakes barely worked. "You should be grateful," my mom said when she saw my disappointed face. "Some kids don't get anything." Madison's 16th birthday, they bought her a brand new car. Not just any car, a $25,000 Honda Civic with all the bells and whistles. She hadn't even passed her driving test yet. When it came time for college, guess who had to figure it out on her own? That's right, me. I applied to state schools and managed to get a partial scholarship that covered about half my tuition. For the rest, I worked my butt off. I got a job at the campus library, working 20 hours a week between classes. I also picked up shifts at a local coffee shop on weekends. Meanwhile, my parents were putting every penny they could into a college fund for Madison. "She's going to be a doctor," they'd tell anyone who would listen. "We need to make sure she can focus on her studies without worrying about money." I graduated with a degree in finance and $30,000 in student loans. My first job was as a junior analyst at a small firm in Manhattan. The starting salary was $65,000 a year, which sounds like a lot until you factor in New York City rent. I found a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn. And when I say tiny, I mean you could touch both walls if you stretched out your arms. The bathroom was so small you had to stand sideways to close the door. But it was mine, and I was proud of it. About a year after I started working, I got a call from my parents that changed everything. It was a Sunday evening, and I was meal prepping for the week when my phone rang. "Olivia, we need to talk to you about something important," my dad said. His voice sounded different, stressed. "What's going on?" "I lost my job," he said. "The company's downsizing, and they let go of half the engineering department." "And your mother?" "She's been having back problems. The doctor says she can't work full-time as a nurse anymore. She can only do part-time, and that's barely covering our groceries." My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry to hear that, Dad. Have you started looking for other jobs?" "Of course I have," he snapped. "But nobody wants to hire a 55-year-old engineer when they can get someone fresh out of college for half the price. Look, Olivia, we need your help." "What kind of help?" "Financial help. We've got the mortgage, your mother's medical bills, and Madison starting medical school next year. The tuition alone is $70,000 a year." $70,000 for 1 year? I was still paying off my own loans, and they wanted me to help pay for Madison's medical degree. "I don't know if I can." "Olivia, please." My mom's voice came through. They had me on speaker. "We're your parents. We raised you. We gave you everything we could. Now we need you to step up and help your family. That's what family does." The guilt trip worked. Of course it did. They'd been perfecting this technique my whole life. I agreed to help, telling myself it would just be temporary, just until Dad found another job. But temporary turned into 8 years. Every month, I sent them money. Sometimes it was $3,000, sometimes $5,000, depending on what crisis they were facing that month. There was always something. The roof needed repairs. The car broke down. Madison needed new textbooks. Mom's medical bills were higher than expected. I paid for it all. Their mortgage, their insurance, their utilities, and yes, most of Madison's medical school tuition. During those 8 years, I worked like a dog. I took on extra projects, worked weekends, and impressed the right people. I got promoted 3 times, eventually making my way up to senior analyst with that $150,000 salary. But even with the good money, I lived like I was still making $65,000. I stayed in my tiny studio for 3 more years before upgrading to a 1-bedroom. I didn't take vacations. I bought my clothes from discount stores. Every extra penny went either to my family or into savings and investments. See, I wasn't just saving money, I was investing it. Real estate investment trusts, index funds, some individual stocks I'd researched thoroughly. I learned everything I could about building wealth because I was determined not to end up like my parents, broke and dependent on their kids. 5 years into supporting my family, I made my biggest investment. I bought a small house in Westchester County, just outside the city. It cost $450,000, which might sound insane, but for that area, it was actually a good deal. It needed some work. The kitchen hadn't been updated since the 80s, and the bathrooms were pretty rough, but it had good bones. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a nice yard. I fixed it up slowly, doing a lot of the work myself on weekends. Thanks to my investments doing well and throwing every bonus and tax refund at the mortgage, I managed to pay it off in just 3 years. At 32, I owned my house free and clear. No mortgage, no rent, just property taxes and maintenance. It felt incredible. My family came to visit sometimes. They'd drive up from New Jersey, where they still lived in the same house I grew up in. They'd eat my food, drink my wine, use my guest room, and never once say thank you. To them, it was just expected. Olivia provides. That's what Olivia does. Madison would sometimes bring her study group over without asking. 5 or 6 medical students would show up at my door, and Madison would say, "We need a quiet place to study, and your house is perfect." They'd take over my living room, eat everything in my fridge, and leave a mess for me to clean up. Not once did any of them say thank you. Not once did they acknowledge that I was the reason Madison could even afford to be in medical school. Then, about 6 months ago, everything changed. It was a Saturday afternoon, and my family was visiting. I was in the kitchen making lunch for everyone when my phone rang. It was my Aunt Patricia, my mom's sister. I almost didn't answer. Aunt Patricia and I weren't particularly close, but something made me pick up. "Hi, Aunt Patricia." "Olivia, how are you, dear?" We made small talk for a minute before she said, "Is Linda there? I tried calling her, but she's not answering." "Yeah, she's here. She's in the living room. Want me to get her?" "If you don't mind." I walked toward the living room, but stopped in the hallway when I heard my mom talking. She must have been on the phone with someone else. "I know, right?" my mom was saying, and she was laughing. "Olivia is our little cash cow. She doesn't even realize we're milking her dry." I froze. "She's too stupid and naive to ever say no," my mom continued. "I mean, what else is she going to do with her money? She doesn't have a husband or kids. She's probably going to die alone in that house of hers, so she might as well use her money to help Madison. At least Madison's going to actually do something with her life." My dad laughed. "Remember when she actually thought we were proud of her for buying that house? Like, wow, Olivia, you bought a house. Madison's going to save lives." "She's like an ATM," my mom added. "Put in a sob story and out comes cash. It's perfect." I stood there in my own hallway, holding my phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Then I heard Madison's voice. "You guys are terrible," she said, but she was laughing too. "But hey, keep that ATM working. I've got 1 more year of school to pay for." I backed away quietly and went upstairs to my bedroom. I told Aunt Patricia that Mom was busy and I'd have her call back later. Then I sat on my bed and tried to process what I'd just heard. 8 years. 8 years of sacrificing, of living below my means, of saying no to things I wanted so I could help them. And this whole time they were laughing at me behind my back. I was nothing but a cash machine to them. I went back downstairs and finished making lunch. I served them food in my dining room, in the house I'd paid for myself, with money I'd earned myself, and I smiled. I made conversation. I acted like nothing had changed, but inside I was planning. A few months later, Madison graduated from medical school. She also announced her engagement to Jacob Harrison, whose parents owned a chain of private medical clinics. The golden child had hit the jackpot, a medical degree and a rich husband. My parents were over the moon. They planned a big engagement dinner at Lou Bernardine, this fancy restaurant in Manhattan. They invited about 20 people, family, close friends, and Jacob's parents. The dinner was on a Friday night, and I drove down from Westchester after work. I should mention that during those months, since I overheard the phone call, I hadn't changed anything about my financial support. I kept sending money every month, kept paying their bills, kept acting like everything was normal. I was waiting for the right moment. The dinner was exactly what you'd expect. Madison sat at the center of the table in a designer dress I'm sure my parents bought with my money, showing off her enormous engagement ring. Jacob sat next to her, this smug-looking guy with slicked-back hair, who kept name-dropping people his family knew. The food was incredible, though I could barely taste it. I was sitting there calculating how much this dinner was going to cost. At least $10,000 for 20 people at a place like this. Guess who would be getting that bill? About halfway through dinner, after everyone had had a few drinks, my dad stood up and tapped his wine glass. "I want to make a toast," he said. The table quieted down. "Madison and Jacob, you two are a perfect match. You're both brilliant, successful, and you're going to have an amazing life together." People raised their glasses, murmuring agreement. But my dad continued. "As you start your new life, you're going to need a proper place to live, a place that reflects your status as a doctor and a businessman." I saw Madison lean forward, her eyes bright with anticipation. My dad turned to look directly at me. "Which is why Olivia is going to give you her house as a wedding gift." The words hung in the air for a moment. Someone gasped. I think it was Aunt Patricia. "What?" "I said your house," my dad repeated, like I was slow. "You're going to give Madison and Jacob your house. It's perfect for them. Good neighborhood, good schools for when they have kids. And let's be honest, Olivia, you don't need all that space. You're single, no kids. You can get a nice apartment back in the city. Or hey, you could even move back in with us." Madison actually clapped her hands together. "Oh my God, yes. I love that house. I already know which room I'm going to turn into the nursery. And that kitchen is perfect for entertaining. Thank you so much, Olivia." She was already thanking me like it was a done deal. "This is so generous of you," Jacob's mother said, smiling at me with her Botox-frozen face. "Madison is so lucky to have a sister like you." My mom reached over and patted my hand. "You're doing the right thing, sweetheart. Family helps family." Everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to smile and nod and hand over the keys to the house I'd worked my ass off to buy and pay for. I stood up slowly. "No," I said. The silence was immediate and complete. "What do you mean, no?" my dad asked. "I mean, no. I'm not giving Madison my house. I bought it with my money. I paid it off with my money. It's mine, and I'm keeping it." Madison's face went from confused to angry in about 2 seconds. "Are you serious right now? You're really going to be this selfish?" "Selfish?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich coming from you." "Olivia, sit down," my mom hissed. "You're embarrassing us." "No, Mom, you embarrassed yourselves." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I'd come prepared. I had screenshots of every bank transfer I'd made to them over the past 8 years. Every single one. "Let me show you all something," I said, holding up my phone. "This is a transfer from 3 months after Dad lost his job, $5,000. Here's one from the next month, $3,000. And the next month, $4,000. I started swiping through the images, holding my phone up so everyone could see. 8 years, I said. 8 years of transfers. Want to know the total? $412,000. That's how much I've given my parents. That's how much I paid for Madison's medical school, their mortgage, their bills, their insurance, everything." Jacob's parents exchanged uncomfortable looks. Some of my relatives were shifting in their seats. "And you know what's really funny?" I continued. "While I was sending them all this money, living in a tiny apartment, never taking vacations, never buying myself anything nice, they were calling me their cash cow, their ATM. They literally said I was too stupid and naive to realize they were using me." "You're lying," my mom said, but her face had gone pale. "Am I?" I looked at Aunt Patricia. "Remember when you called a few months ago? Mom was on the phone with someone, laughing about how I just keep giving them money like an idiot. Tell them, Aunt Patricia. Tell them what you heard." Aunt Patricia looked uncomfortable, but she spoke up. "Linda did say something about Olivia being too easy to manipulate. She said Olivia would give them anything if they just acted sad enough." The table erupted. Jacob's parents were whispering to each other. My cousins were staring at my parents in shock. Madison was crying, but they looked like angry tears. "You've ruined everything," Madison shrieked at me. "You've ruined my engagement dinner. You're just jealous because I'm getting married and you're going to die alone." "Maybe," I said, putting my phone back in my purse. "But at least I won't be a parasite." I pulled out my wallet and put $200 bills on the table. "That's for my dinner," I said, "and that's the last money you'll ever see from me." My dad stood up. "Olivia, if you walk out that door—" "What?" I interrupted. "You'll cut me off? Stop talking to me? Please do. It'll save me the trouble of blocking your numbers." I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high, though my hands were shaking. The valet brought my car around, and I drove home in silence, my phone buzzing constantly with calls and texts I didn't answer. When I got home, I did exactly what I said I would do. I blocked my parents' numbers, Madison's number, and Jacob's number. I went into my banking app and canceled all the automatic transfers. I removed them as authorized users on my credit cards. I changed my Netflix password, my Amazon Prime password, everything they'd been mooching off of. Then I opened a bottle of wine and sat on my couch in my house that I would not be giving to anyone, and I felt free. The next few weeks were quiet, blissfully quiet. I threw myself into work, started going to a yoga class, even went on a few dates with a guy from my company's marketing department. His name was Tom, and he was sweet and funny and had no idea about the drama with my family. Then, about a month after the dinner, Aunt Patricia called. Olivia, I know you probably don't want to hear about your family right now, but I thought you should know what's been happening. I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. What's going on? Well, first of all, Madison told your parents she needs a break after all that studying. She said she's too burned out to start her residency. She's been staying at home, sleeping until noon, going shopping with her friends. I laughed. All that money for medical school, and she wasn't even going to use the degree. But that's not the biggest news, Aunt Patricia continued. Jacob broke off the engagement. I sat up straighter. He did? About a week after that dinner, he told Madison he couldn't marry someone from such a, she lowered her voice, and I quote, problematic family of grifters. His parents apparently told him that if your family could scam you out of $400,000, what would they do to him? Well, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Turns out Madison was cheating on Jacob. Anyway, she's been seeing some bartender from a club in the city, Ryan or Brian or something. And here's the kicker. 3 weeks ago, they ran off to Mexico together. You're kidding. I'm not. And Olivia, she took your parents' savings with her, about $30,000 they had hidden away, cleaned out their emergency fund and their checking account. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for them. Actually, no, I didn't feel sorry for them at all. Your parents are in real trouble now, Aunt Patricia said. Without your money, they can't pay the mortgage. The bank sent them a foreclosure notice. They've been calling all the relatives begging for loans. Let me guess. Nobody wants to help the people who scammed their own daughter out of $400,000. Exactly. Your story spread pretty quickly through the family. Nobody wants to be their next ATM. They've been trying to reach you. Your dad even wrote you a letter. He mailed it to your office. I had gotten the letter. I'd thrown it in the trash without opening it. I'm done with them, Aunt Patricia. I understand. I just thought you should know. Oh, and your mom asked me to tell you that they're sorry, and that you're their only hope. Their only hope for what? More money? They had 8 years of my money. They could have saved some. They could have been grateful. Instead, they laughed at me behind my back and tried to steal my house. They made their bed. 2 more months passed. I heard through Aunt Patricia that my parents had been forced to sell their house. They moved into a 2-bedroom rental apartment in a rough part of New York. My dad, at 60 years old, had to take a job as a night security guard at a warehouse. My mom was working as a janitor at a hospital, the same hospital where she used to work as a nurse. Madison came back from Mexico 6 months later, pregnant and broke. Ryan, or Brian, or whatever his name was, had abandoned her in Cancun after spending all her money. She had to call my parents to wire her money for a plane ticket home. So now the 3 of them were living in that cramped apartment. My dad working nights, my mom cleaning toilets, and Madison pregnant with no job, no medical license, no husband, and no prospects. Meanwhile, my life kept getting better. I got promoted to senior analyst with a salary bump to $175,000. Tom and I became official. He's actually a great guy, divorced, with a teenage daughter who's really cool. I bought another investment property, a condo I'm renting out for passive income. I started taking those vacations I'd never allowed myself. Tom and I went to Greece last month, and we're planning a trip to Japan for New Year's. I still get messages from my parents sometimes, passed through relatives. They want to reconcile. They want to apologize. They want me to meet Madison's baby, a little boy she named Oliver, which feels like a deliberate dig at me. But here's the thing about being someone's cash cow. Once you stop producing milk, they realize that's all you ever were to them. They don't miss me. They miss my money. They miss the safety net I provided, the bills I paid, the lifestyle I funded. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have given them another chance. Then I remember my mom's voice calling me stupid and naive. I remember my dad saying I should be grateful to give them my house. I remember Madison laughing about me being an ATM. And I remember that for 8 years I gave them everything, and they gave me nothing but mockery in return. Tom doesn't know the full story yet. I've told him my family and I are estranged, but not the details. Maybe someday I'll tell him everything. For now, I'm just enjoying having a relationship with someone who actually values me for me, not for what I can provide. Last week, I saw on Facebook, I'm not friends with any of them, but mutual relatives still post things that Madison got a job at a fast food place. There was a picture of her in her uniform, holding Oliver, with a caption about working hard for my baby boy. The comments were full of people praising her for being such a strong single mother. Nobody mentioned that she could have been a doctor. Nobody mentioned the hundreds of thousands of dollars that paid for her medical degree. Nobody mentioned the sister who sacrificed everything for a family that saw her as nothing but a wallet. But I know, and that's enough. My house in Westchester is beautiful in the fall. The leaves on the trees in my yard turn golden red, and there's this perfect spot on my back deck where you can sit with a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise. Tom and I were sitting there last Sunday morning, planning what to make for dinner that night, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but I knew immediately who it was. Olivia, this is Mom. I got a new phone. Please, we need to talk. Madison is sick, and we can't afford the hospital bills. You're our only hope. Please remember we're family. I showed it to Tom. He read it and looked at me with raised eyebrows. What are you going to do? I took the phone back, blocked the number, and set it aside. Nothing, I said. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. And you know what? It felt amazing. People might think I'm cruel. They might say I should forgive and forget. That family is family no matter what. But those people probably haven't had their family call them a cash cow. They probably haven't given away $400,000 only to be told they should also give away their home. They probably haven't been laughed at by the people who were supposed to love them most. The truth is, cutting toxic people out of your life isn't cruel. It's necessary. Even if those toxic people are your parents, even if they're your sister, even if they're the family you're supposed to love unconditionally. Because here's what I learned. Love shouldn't come with conditions, but respect should be non-negotiable. And if someone can't respect you, if they see you as nothing more than a resource to be exploited, then they don't deserve a place in your life. My parents and Madison are learning that lesson now, the hard way. They thought the cash cow would always be there, ready to be milked whenever they needed money. They thought the ATM would never run out of cash. They thought I was too stupid and naive to ever stand up for myself. They thought wrong. And honestly, their current situation isn't my fault. I didn't make Madison skip her residency. I didn't make her cheat on her rich fiancé. I didn't make her run off to Mexico with a bartender. I didn't make her get pregnant by a guy who would abandon her. I didn't make my parents mock me behind my back. I didn't make them demand my house. I didn't make them save nothing, despite getting $400,000 from me over 8 years. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. As for me, I'm living my best life. I have a beautiful home that's all mine. I have a successful career that I built myself. I have a boyfriend who sees me as a partner, not a piggy bank. I have savings and investments and a future that looks bright. And I have something else, something you can't put a price on. Self-respect. It took me 32 years to find it. But now that I have it, I'm never letting it go. Not for anyone, not even for family. Especially not for family that never saw me as anything more than their personal ATM. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say no. And sometimes the most important person you need to save is yourself.